خود بخود ہاتھ اٹھے جاتے ہیں لینے کو تمہیں، کب سے بے چین ہوں میں لوریاں دینے کو تمہیں، ہو گئی رات بس اب گود میں آؤ میری جان، ہو میرے لال کہاں، ہو میرے لال کہاں، زخم گردن کا خدا جانے دھلایا کہ نہیں، جسم سے خون بھرا کرتا وہ اتارا کہ نہیں، کیا لہو زخم سے ناوک کا ابھی تک ہے رواں، ہو میرے لال کہاں، ہو میرے لال کہاں، کیا بتائیں جو ستم ہم نے اٹھائے بیٹا، خیمے سب آگ کے لعینوں نے جلائے بیٹا، دیکھو جھولے سے تمہارے ابھی اٹھتا ہے دھواں، ہو میرے لال کہاں، ہو میرے لال کہاں، اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔ اور دیگر صلوات۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔ بانو کہاں تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو، بانو کہاں تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو، جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے زہرا کی آل کو، بانو کہاں تلاش، زینب کے ساتھ روتی ہیں سب مل کے بیبیاں، زینب کے ساتھ روتی ہیں سب مل کے بیبیاں، جب دیکھتی تھی روز وہ وقت زوال کو، بانو کہاں تلاش کرے، شبیر دل کو تھام کے غش کھا کے گر پڑے. شبیر دل کو تھام کے غش کھا کے گر پڑے. دیکھا جو خون میں تر نبی کے جمال کو بانو کہاں تلاش. شبیر میرے پاس ہے صدقے کو بس یہی. شبیر میرے پاس ہے صدقے کو بس یہی. جھولے سے لا کے دے دیا بانو نے لال کو. بانو کہاں تلاش. شبیر لا رہے ہیں میدان سے دیکھیے. شبیر لا رہے ہیں میدان سے دیکھیے. اپنے ضعیف کاندھوں پہ 18 سال کو بانو کہاں تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو. جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے زہرا کی آل کو. بانو کہاں تلاش. اور محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
بارے دیگر صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
پر محمد والے محمد صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
رن میں تھا ذوف گن مہے زہرا تمام رات. رن میں تھا ذوف گن مہے زہرا تمام رات. عرش بری بنا تھا مصلی تمام رات. رن میں تھا ذوف گن مہے زہرا تمام رات. طرز ادا پہ رحمت حق جھومتی رہی. طرز ادا پہ شمع بجھی ہوئی تھی خیمہ حسین میں، شمع بجھی ہوئی ٹکرا رہا تھا سر کو اندھیرا تمام رات، رن میں تھا ذوف گن مہ زہرا تمام رات، عباس گرد خیمہ شہ گھومتے رہے، عباس گرد خیمہ شہ گھومتے رہے، مثل طواف خانہ کعبہ تمام رات، رن میں تھا ذوف گن مہ زہرا تمام رات، اکبر کے چھوٹنے کا جو آتا رہا خیال، اکبر کے چھوٹنے کا جو آتا رہا خیال، تھا دھڑکنوں میں ماں کا کلیجہ تمام رات، رن میں تھا ذوف گن مہ زہرا تمام رات، مقتل کی سرزمین پہ بناتے رہے حسین، مقتل کی سرزمین پہ بناتے رہے حسین، اسلام کی حیات کا نقشہ تمام رات، رن میں تھا ذوف گن مہ زہرا تمام رات، اصغر کہیں تمام نہ ہو جائے پیاس سے، اصغر کہیں تمام نہ ہو جائے پیاس سے، ماں جھک کے دیکھتی رہی جھولا تمام رات، رن میں تھا ذوف گن مہ زہرا تمام رات، دیغو سنا کی چھاؤں میں جاگا کیے حسین، دیغو سنا کی چھاؤں میں جاگا کیے حسین، اور سو رہی تھی چین سے دنیا تمام رات، رن میں تھا ذوف گن مہ زہرا تمام رات، عرش بری بنا تھا مصلی تمام رات،
Hussain. Is there anyone who will come and help Hussain? His ranks are empty, shields are broken. He looks across the plain and the Umayyad army sits, flanks limp, cool faces covered. Not one moves, even if some cower in shame. Hal min nasirin yansurana, he calls. But in the camp, one soul hears him clearly, raises its tiny hands, grabs the cot's frame, and rocks, rocks, rocks till his body falls. Asghar, in his 6th month, answers Hussain. And the women rush forward, sweeping up, and the Banu Hashim begin to keen and lament as one. Hussain hears, hastens to the encampment, where he finds all the women clustered round Rabab, around Rabab, where Ali Asghar waits for him. What happened? Hussain is still here for you. Rabab looks at the smiling child and says, Ya Sayyid, when you called, he threw himself from his cot and refuses to return. Hussein's face darkens as he holds the child. So, my Asghar, you would hold me to my word. When we left Medina, I took you then from Sughra, who begged me to leave you there. What did I promise you to make you leap to me? I promised you that you would be my completion this day. Asghar gazes at the Imam. They understand. The army is uncertain. It whispers, it rustles. Maybe the Sayyid will relent. Then they murmur as he approaches. Maybe Hussain brings a Quran to change our minds. Then the murmurs rise to chatter, and then screaming, and then weeping, and become gasps as Hussain reveals his Quran. Simple in its cover, a swaddling cloth. This Quran, born like the word, into the house where angels circled in zikr with every breath. The horde is silent, its common will broken. If you will not give me water, give some to this child. I should be watching this child roll in his crib. I should be listening to his gurgles. I should be watching him grow the world with his hands as he lifts himself into a walk. Do you not have children? Do you not dote on them? Is not every block of life they build an anchor in your heart? Yet this infant, drawn from the blossom of Muhammad, this child, you would deny water. This child you would hear rasping through dry breath and cracked lips. He pauses once more, and still nothing. If you are afraid that I may drink some, I move aside and leave him on the sand. There is no response. Come, my child, it seems our work is not done yet. Show these hard hearts how thirsty you are. Ali Asghar opens his mouth, runs his dry tongue over white lips. As it sweeps, they begin to weep. Saad, seeing he is losing control, is distraught. He signals to Hurmala, and the fiend nods. He strings his bow and fires an arrow. But even this demon cannot watch, so he closes his eyes, and the aim wavers. A brute arrow, made for shattering heavy horse, barbed like a claw, slams into Ali Asghar's neck. The force enough to drive into Hussein's shoulder. Hussain feels the claw, the warm wet blood, and he looks at Asghar. Ali Asghar smiles, and the life leaves those eyes as Asghar, in his silence, keeps his word. There is stillness and blood on his hands. Hussain looks to empty it into the earth, but the sand sobs, "Task me with this test, and not a seed sown will see harvest." So the Shah looks to send it to the sky. "Taint me thus, and it will never rain," it replies. So the Shah rests his palms on his face. "My Lord, I shall show you these traces." Salawat.
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Before I ask Sheikh to deliver his lecture, there's just a few announcements and there's a short presentation. But before that, can I request people in this room to come into the Imam Barga? There's plenty of space, and can I ask everyone to move forward? Come on, kids. Every day we stand here asking you to move forward and forward and forward. Please come forward, there's plenty of space. Come. Thank you so much for that. Just a couple of announcements. The first one is this morning our brother Salim Raza's mother, who was ill. We've been reciting Dua Shafa for the past number of days. Unfortunately, she passed away this morning. Can I all request you all to recite Surah Fatiha for her? Can I also request you all to recite Surah Fatiha for the marhumeens of the following families: Kashif Rizvi, Zafar Zaidi, Raza Zaidi, Raza Mamdani, and Koram Nakwi. Please recite Surah Fatiha for all the marhumeens of their families. Muharram fund is open. Bank details will be on the screen after the lecture. So anyone who wants to make a donation can do so through bank, or they can approach one of the committee members and pay cash directly to them. The next announcement is Ashura. Tomorrow is the Ashura day. The program will start here at 11:30 with Amali Ashura. Then there'll be Salat al-Zohr, and then Marthia, Maktal, and then in the evening, there's in between Ashura and Sham-e Gariba, there is a majlis for gents only at our residence, and inshallah that will be around 4:30. And thereafter, the evening program, Sham-e Gariba program, will start at 9 o'clock, inshallah. Messages have been sent out. If anyone wants any further details, they can approach myself. Before I invite Sheikh, the World Federation of the Khoja Shia International Muslim Community are embarking on a global census. Those people who attended last year's lecture where Sheikh Jafar said that in order to develop a community, in order to strategize, to find out what's the needs of those communities, we need to know how many we have and what are the needs are. So as a process, as a first stage in that process, tomorrow we'll be doing a head count for all those who will be attending the center. So there will be 8 boxes in the gents and 8 boxes in the ladies. This will be made very clear in the video that we'll be showing. Adnan, can you just put that up, please?
In our rapidly changing world, accurate and comprehensive data is a fundamental guide to decision-making and precise resource allocation. The World Federation Global Census Project aims to collect accurate and reliable data from all regions to get closer to the vision of preparing a global generational plan. The headcount exercise will be a stepping stone towards the World Federation Global Census, which will run across all federations on the day of Ashura, the 10th of Muharram. This initiative will involve all individuals attending their respective centers, both male and female, and across all age groups. It will take place on the same day across all of our Jamaats globally. The initiative will help to provide baseline data for the team, which will enable accurate planning and resource allocation. As a member, you will receive a blank card from a volunteer as you enter your center. There will be a table with boxes labeled according to age group, and you will place your card into the box that corresponds with your age group. During this, you need not write or provide any details on the card. The success of the World Federation Headcount Initiative relies on the participation of individuals like you. Together, we can make a significant difference in shaping a better future for all. This is an opportunity for us to come together to build a brighter future for generations to come. So let us make history, one person at a time, as we embark on this remarkable journey. Be a part of something extraordinary. Be a part of the World Federation Headcount Initiative.
Thank you, Adnan, for that. So I don't think I need to add anything more because it's all there. Inshallah, tomorrow you'll see 8 boxes, and cards will be given to you, and then you just put the card which corresponds to your age group, inshallah. With that, can we recite a loud salawat and welcome Sheikh Hilli to the minbar. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
الله من قرأ الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. صلوا على محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا خيرة خلق الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة ورحمة الله وبركاته. Together. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. My dear sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Throughout my journey in meeting people from around the world, meeting different communities, different societies, I find that there's a common problem, common challenge that is happening all around the world. And this particular challenge, as we mentioned in the last few nights, is the issue of conflicts between couples and the difference between the two and the misunderstandings, the miscommunications, the problems that arise from that. And unfortunately, this could result in the D word, Yes, divorce, unfortunately. Now, it is important that when we gather to commemorate the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah on these particular nights, we tackle these particular issues. Why? Some may ask, why are you talking about this topic on the night of the 10th of Muharram? Shouldn't you be talking about Abu Abdullah? Well, I truly believe that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he was martyred for reformation. He said that. I was martyred, I have come about so that I can do what? I can reform the ummah, yes, and take it back to the direction of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and my father Ali ibn Abi Talib. And through his sacrifice, not just himself and his family and his companions, he achieved reformation. Yes, and he reformed the ummah. And there were many challenges at that particular time, and he reformed the ummah through what he did. Now, 1,400 years on, we have challenges, and we have to also reform. But on these particular nights, we have to talk about the challenges. It's important that we talk about the challenges so that in the name of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, we come with solutions. Because from what I'm witnessing, from what I am hearing, from what I am being told by individuals who are going through problems, this is a major issue in our communities. And it's affecting the society, because the structure of society, the structure of community is what? Is when the household is strong. Al-Usra says in Arabic, the household must be strong. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala focused on the Usra. The relationship between the husband and the wife, the relationship between the parents and the children. We talked about this yesterday, didn't we? So therefore, it's important for us to examine this particular relationship, the relationship between husband and wife, because it seems like the challenges, the problems in society, the environment, social media, whatever the reasons, is causing lots of misunderstanding, miscommunication between the couple. Yes? And it upsets me a lot. It really upsets me when I hear the stories, when people come and see me and talk to me about their problems. It upsets me a lot. Because when this is happening, it actually is affecting the children as well. Especially if they have children, it's affecting the children. And also for others who are thinking of marriage, they'll think twice and think, well, what am I getting myself into here? You know, if this is all a challenge and a problem. So therefore, as mu'mineen, as the followers of AhlulBayt, followers of Imam al-Hussein salamullahi alayh, we have to try to tackle this particular issue. And today, with your permission, we want to take one particular angle. But just before that, I did a survey around 2 years ago on the issue of divorce and why it is happening in our community. The problem is, it was interesting, Brother Rasul put out that video, and it's an interesting project by the World Federation to take the census, and try to find out the different population, what is it made, the demographics, what is the communities made out of? Is it mainly males, females, different ages, etc., right? And that's really important. Data is vital for us to grow. If someone was to come and ask us, okay, so give me the rate of divorces in our community, we won't know. No one knows. Yes, it's very important for us to embark on trying to collect data, because the world is all about data collection now. You have now data scientists who are using artificial intelligence to try to model data, yes, and try to come up with models so that it can have classifiers, predictors, according to the data that you provided, yes? So therefore, collecting data is important. So what I try to do, a very simple data collection, and I surveyed around 120 individuals who have gone through divorce, yes? And they answered quite a few questions. And I'll give you a very quick summary of this particular this particular survey. Now, when the males were asked, what are the main reasons why you divorced? And these people have gone through divorce, yes? So what's the main reason why you have divorced? They said something very interesting. They said it's lack of compatibility. So lack of compatibility, whatever it means, we don't even know what it means. So lack of compatibility is, well, I didn't really get on with her. I didn't really, she wasn't my type. You know, we didn't really click, especially if they're right at the start of their marriage. You know, our system of spouse selection, there are still issues with that. How we supposed to select our, you know, the spouses. You know, as we said a few nights ago, that, you know, our sisters are waiting for marriage proposals, whereas Islam says it's fine for the sister to propose. Yes, and we gave examples that Khadija was one of them. Narrations say that the mother Amina, mother of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she proposed to Abdullah. And of course, when you say the particular passage for marriage, yes, is the wife is the sigha, yes, the wife is proposing. So therefore, it is something that we should really be considering, you know, make it a norm in society. I'm not saying just one particular direction, but make them both okay. You know, the male proposes, the female proposes, that's fine. It's okay. There's nothing embarrassing about it at all. That could be a solution. However, the current situation we have is just mainly one way. The male is proposing to female. So they say lack of compatibility. Yes, lack of compatibility. But what's interesting is what the females say. So the lack of compatibility was around 52% of the males. The females, we asked them, what are the reasons why you divorced? And that particular, the reasons they gave was quite astonishing, to be quite honest, because 67% of them said it's abuse. Now, they don't mean physical abuse, they mean emotional abuse. And this is a thing. This is a thing that when you come and examine what is emotional abuse, you find that the UN report on what is domestic abuse, they say that if one of the spouse, not necessarily, you know, it could be the wife or the husband, calls you name, insults you, or continuously criticizes you, that is emotional abuse. Does not trust you, yes, and is jealous, that's emotional abuse. Monitors where you go, whom you call, or whom you spend time with. So basically, you just after them wherever they go. That's considered as emotional abuse. Punishes you by withholding affection, yes. So stops you from intimacy, perhaps, or stops you from going out with your friends or whatever. That's considered emotional abuse. And humiliates you in any way, in front of others or not, yes, that's also considered as emotional abuse. So they are using this particular, they are saying that because of that, we went through lots of conflict and then resulted in divorce. 67% of them, so nearly 2/3 of the people I surveyed say this, which give you just a small flavor of what's actually happening in our communities. And so therefore, when we try to understand what the problem is, it seems like there is some sort of an emotional disconnect between the two. There's some sort of an emotional disconnect between the two. That is why it's important we try to look at the emotions and analyze how emotionally intelligent we are. So I've decided to look at the husband. Just look at the husband for today. Yes? Mainly because I am a husband. Right? And it's good for me to know this. But also, it's important that because of the structure of the household, and it has been like this for many, many, many years, that the structure of the household is usually the man is in charge. Yes? And that is why it says in the Quran, الرجال قوامون على النساء. It doesn't mean that you overpower them or you're in control of them. That's the misconception. That's not what it means. It means that in every project there's got to be someone who's in charge. You're going to have someone who's in charge. So in here, Baab-Ul-Ilm, there's someone in charge. Correct? There is a president, there's a prime minister, there is whatever. In every project there has to be someone who's in charge. Otherwise it's just, it'll be a mess. It'll be chaos. So that's why I told you earlier that in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to make the formation, the structure of a family quite sound. So that's why He made the man in charge, but that is to protect the woman, not to control her or not to harm her or any of that, or emotionally abuse her or whatever, but actually to do what? To protect his wife and the family. So therefore, we have decided to look at what an emotionally intelligent husband looks like. So that we as husbands can be emotionally intelligent in our household, yes, and that can perhaps allow for us to truly be people who protect our family, as how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to. قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. Yes? And that's one particular aspect of course, emotional intelligence. And so therefore, inshallah, we'll have a look at this particular aspect, but it's important also to note that the wife has to also be emotionally intelligent. Yes, I mean, I'm not saying that only one side has to be emotionally intelligent, but we're dedicating this particular lecture because if at least one of them becomes emotionally intelligent, according to this particular survey, around 67% are emotionally abused, or most of them are emotionally abused. There is unfortunately some physical abuse, but most of them are emotionally abused, then we can reduce that particular figure. If the husband becomes what? Becomes emotionally intelligent. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So when we come to emotional intelligence, yes, you've heard about this particular phrase, emotional intelligence. When you talk about intelligence, there are actually three different types. There is intellectual intelligence, IQ. There is emotional intelligence, EQ. And there is spiritual intelligence, SQ. Yes? So they say that the IQ and the EQ, the intellectual intelligence and the emotional intelligence, are about knowledge and emotions. So IQ is about knowledge, yes. Some people are really good with IQ, but you can't really go out with them. Just horrible to go out with. You know, they're just like socially awkward and not really emotional in any sense. But there are others who are very high in EQ but low in IQ. You can go out with them, but you can't really have a very good intellectual discussion with them. Yes? But, of course, what we endeavor to have is high IQ and high EQ. Because they both, right? They both come together. And when they come together, then you form what is known as SQ, spiritual intelligence. And spiritual intelligence is about meaning and purpose. Because when you have high EQ and you have high IQ and you bring the two together, then there is this infusion which brings about a high SQ, which gives you some sort of meaning and purpose. Correct? But our focus today is about EQ. And when we look at emotional intelligence is about comprehending your own emotions and the people around you. And the question we've got to reflect on, my dear brothers and sisters, is how well do you know yourself in terms of your emotions? Yes? And specifically about your relationship with your wife. Specifically about that. Because are you this individual who, when she reacts to certain situations emotionally, how do you react? If she was to come and she's going through some distressing times, probably something with her family or with her job or with a member of the community or whatever it may be. What will you, the husband, right? What would be your emotions towards her? That is the question here, isn't it? How are you going to react towards her being quite emotional? Would you say, well, actually, just get on with it. It's fine. It's okay. It's just they didn't mean it like this. Perhaps if someone says something not so great to her, offensive to her in the community or outside, how are you going to try to help her emotionally so that you can calm the situation? Sometimes when we husbands cannot react in the best possible way, it does what? It makes the situation even worse, right? And it results in some conflict. So emotionally intelligent husbands are not actually really special people, right? They're not like, when you want to find an emotionally intelligent husband, the people who want to find a husband, like, he's like good looking, he's like really smart, he's like, that's nothing to do with it. And emotionally, studies have shown, and there is this individual, if you're interested, you can read more about this. There's this person called John Gottman, yes? He's done a lot of study on emotional intelligence and also emotionally intelligent husbands and also in terms of emotional intelligence in a relationship, yes? And he said that what makes them the best type of husband is that they figured out the keys to a thriving marriage, and that is honor and respect. And when I was reading this, of course, you go back to the Holy Quran, and Quran speaks about this particular issue and talks to the husband about honoring and respecting his wife. He says in chapter 4, verse 19, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Yes? وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Live with them and show them kindness. عاشروهن بالمعروف. When عاشروهن, there is some sort of love. There is that presence of love, of kindness, of generosity. Yes? This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way he says that عاشروهن in Arabic means he's talking to the male and he's telling him, the husband telling him about the wife. Treat her with respect. Treat her with kindness and dignity. We don't need this guy John Gottman to come and tell us this. Of course, yes? So therefore, he says that because this type of husband honors and respects his wife, he will open to learning more about emotions from her. You see, this is really interesting because some people might accuse wives, women of being more emotional than men. There has been dispute amongst this. Some say yes, some say no. Yes. Nevertheless, they express emotions more than we do. That is why many men suffer from mental illnesses because they don't express their emotions. It's very difficult because I'm a man and I know that there are some youngsters here. It's very important that you must express your emotions. Don't have this mentality of like, I am a man, I can't express my emotions. Express your emotions. There is nothing wrong with expressing emotions. We express emotions when we cry with the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah, don't we? Then why can't we express our emotions in our household or in society or in community in general? Yes? Or to our wives. How many husbands here, how many of you guys have cried in front of your wife? Hardly. You hold it, don't you? Right? You hold it because you don't want to show her vulnerability, and this is our vulnerability. You know about vulnerabilities? This is our vulnerability. I've got to show that I'm a man. If I am going through distress, I can't cry in front of my wife. It's difficult. I can't show her I am weak. I'm the man of the house. But no, that's not what Allah meant. That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meant when He said you're the man of the house. Show your vulnerability. That's absolutely fine. If you cry, that does not show that you are weak. I have cried in front of my wife several times. times, not just once. I'm proud of it. Judge me whatever you want, but I'm proud of it. There's nothing wrong with it at all. In fact, it shows strength. That doesn't mean that you are weak. In fact, once you show your emotions, when you express your emotions in front of your wife, it shows what? It shows that you are truly a human being. You are truly someone who, there is, in these tears, it brings you together. There is that empathy we talked about. There is that connection with your wife. Yes? And I'm sure if you go back and speak to your wives, they will confirm this. That they in fact will see you as higher than they used to see you before. If you were to shed tears. Not shedding tears just for the sake of it, but if you are going through some sort of distress, talk to your wife about it. Express some feelings. Right? Allow that particular connection. So therefore he says that you will be open to learning more about emotions from her if you're an emotionally intelligent husband. You will learn more emotions from her because you're open to understanding this. So we're going to go through some suggestions into how to be an emotionally intelligent husband. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Number one is ask her about her opinion on certain matters. I know this might be a sensitive topic because not many of us ask our wives for opinion on really important matters about the household because I believe that I am the man, I should decide. But this guy, John Gottman, he's done a study. He's taken 130 newlywed couples and he's analyzed their relationship for 9 years. Long study, 9 years. And what he says that if husbands ask for their partner's opinion when making any important decision, they have a happier life. Yes? But we usually don't do this because we fear of losing power. Yes? We fear of a loss of power. So, if there is something going on at work, you ask her for her opinion. There is much more respect when this particular thing happens. Right? But when you do not ask opinion, and then she finds out and says, well, why didn't you speak to me about this? Why didn't you ask me about my opinion? We tend to do what? We tend to revert to stonewalling. And in his survey, he found that 86% or so of men revert to what? Stonewalling. Do you know what stonewalling means? It's when we just completely ignore our wives. We're very good with that. Excellent. A star with stonewalling. When I am angry, I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated, I stonewall. So I don't want to talk to you. And she says, well, tell me what's going on. I say, no, I don't. And you just go blank face. It is quite annoying. It's very frustrating. Yeah, we should stop stonewalling. Express, talk. There's no problem with that. Okay? So there are, of course, a narration from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of course, several narrations on these particular aspects, but when we are talking about expressing your point of view, allowing them to talk, yes, allowing them to give expression, to give their view on different matters, yes, it is a form of what? Honor. It's a form of respect, as how it was highlighted earlier. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, there is a narration that says your best of men are those who are the most lenient with people and most generous to their women, to their wives. And Tahdib al-Ahkam, the Shaykh al-Tusi. That is a narration from the Prophet. You say you are the most lenient to people and most generous to your wives, to women. Yes? And that leniency and also generosity comes from a highly intelligent husband. Someone who really understands his emotions and the emotions of his wife. Number two is you've got to manage your own emotions. You've got to know when you get triggered with anger. And we all, as husbands, have gone through conflicts. We all have gone through anger. Yes? How many of us have actually analyzed and comprehended what actually triggers my anger? What is it that is triggering my anger? Because if you're a highly emotionally intelligent husband, then you will understand, you will comprehend what actually triggers your anger. Maybe sometimes there are certain things that the wife does to trigger your anger. Speak to her about this. Have an open conversation and say, look, I want to become an emotionally intelligent husband so that we can keep a strong relationship. But when you say this to me, or when you tell me to do this with the kids, or for example, when you come back from your friends and then you've told me I haven't done X, Y, and Z and things like that, you could have said it in a better way, or you could have expressed it in a way that triggers me. Can we please not do this again? Speak, open up, talk about your issues. Otherwise, it results to us stonewalling, and that's mostly the case, and it becomes a conflict. Yes? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in chapter 3 verse 134, الذين ينفقون في السراء, he's describing those who are muttaqeen, الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. Do you know what كاظمين الغيظ means? كاظمين الغيظ is those who restrain their anger. Kadhum means you restrain. And غيظ means anger. Yes? Those individuals who restrain anger. And that is why our seventh Imam was known as Al-Kadhum. Because he went through so many calamities and so many trials that he kept on restraining his anger. In prison, many, many years in prison, etc. Right? So therefore, it is as if you are blowing a balloon and just before the balloon explodes, you hold it. That's restraining anger. And how many of us, let's be honest here, Majlis of Aba Abdullah, we have to be honest. How many of us here have reached that position where it's cooking up inside and is just about to explode, and then it explodes? You know what I'm talking about? In terms of anger, in terms of frustration, especially because sometimes our wives, right, irritate us. And according to us, they irritate us. They say certain things, they do certain things that they irritate us. And when they say that, the speed of the thought that comes in my head through anger accelerates, and then I burst. And then God knows what happens after that. We don't even want to know. Yes? And we've talked about thoughts. We've talked about you've got to find out what are the particular thoughts that are causing you to get angry. So for example, if your wife knows that you are someone who is clean, and you are someone who always loves cleanliness, right? And you've agreed with her right at the start from when you got married that, look, I want the house clean, I want whatever, my room clean. And it could be the other way around, by the way. It could be that the husbands are at home and women are working. It's fine. But in this particular example, you are working and she's at home, and you come one day and you find that everything is a mess. The children have made all sorts of a mess. You go upstairs to your bedroom and it's an absolute tip. It's a mess. The first thing that comes into your head is a thought that says, oh, wait a second. And it's triggered by our ego, because I am emotionally not intelligent. So it's triggered by my ego, and the thought comes, says, well, Ali, look, you've told her to make sure that she cleans, and she hasn't. So what's going on here? The ego is threatened. The ego says, well, Ali, come on, do something about this. You can't just let this go. This happens in a split second, by the way, right? And that is why al-muttaqeen, true muttaqeen, understand these are the whispers of the shaitan. We talked about this before. And so therefore, the thought comes into your head and says, well, go and shout at her. because you need to strengthen the ego. The ego needs to be strengthened because you're the man of the house. How can she not listen to you? How can she not follow your instructions? So you go down, and that thought has been translated into what? Into emotions and anger. And then you start to shout and you say, I told you so many times, etc. But if you were to rewind, and if you were an emotionally intelligent husband, and you know what triggers you, you understand that sometimes when it's not clean, that triggers me. You understand that, you comprehend that. You know that you're going to get a thought, say, why has she not cleaned up? But you're conscious of that particular thought. And then when you are conscious of that thought, you go upstairs, if you're an emotionally intelligent husband, you go and you understand your thoughts, and that thought comes in and says, well, ego comes in and says, go and shout at her. You're very much aware of this. You're not on autopilot. Remember we talked about autopilot in last 3 nights, or the first or second lecture, that we've got 60 to 70,000 thoughts, and we're 95% of them are where we don't even know that it's actually they're repeated thoughts. Yes. So this could be, you could be on autopilot, but we want to get ourselves out of this autopilot system. So therefore, when you come to your bedroom, if you're highly intelligent, emotionally intelligent husband, you're aware of that particular thought, and you say, okay, let me be in the present. We talked about embracing the present moment. It could be, and then you give 70 excuses to your wife. It could be that she has been unwell today. It could be that the children have really made her go crazy on that particular day. It could be that she was busy doing other things. Could be, give 70 excuses, right? And then you come down, perhaps you speak to her in the best possible way, and maybe you can even help in trying to clean the house. Correct? Or try to talk to her because you understand that if you were to become angry, she will also become angry, and there will be a clash, and there will be a big conflict. So that is why for you to make sure that there is no conflicts is for you to be highly emotionally intelligent, so that you can stop that particular conflict from happening. Blank faces or صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So therefore we have to try to understand, yes, and manage our emotions as husbands. Now, the third one is active listening. We're terrible at listening. We are really terrible at listening. You know, it's like there's a voice coming from somewhere. And you think, oh yes, what were you saying? Sometimes my wife tells me this. Okay, tell me, what did I say? Say it again. Right? So, you know, you're laughing because it happens to you. As husbands, we're terrible at listening. Yes? But it is like stonewalling, a bit annoying. Not a bit, quite a lot annoying. Yes? Imagine that you are speaking to someone and they don't listen to you. And you know what? One of the most annoying things, this is a personal thing for me, annoying thing is when you talk to someone and they're on their phone. Like, you know, playing with their phone. So disrespectful. Really, really disrespectful. Just as a side point. Okay? But sometimes we do that as husbands as well. Maybe they do that as well. But they're better in terms of listening, not hearing. There's a difference between listening and hearing. Yes? Actively listening. When you listen, you pay attention. When you hear, it's like some voice coming from somewhere. Okay? And when she comes and perhaps complains to you about something, and I'm not saying, you know, I don't want to portray the picture that they always complain, or we complain as well, but in this particular example, she comes and says, for example, she comes and says, well, you know, I've had a really busy day at work, and this person, he annoyed me by saying this, and she said that, but you say, look, in your mind, you say, I really don't want to hear this. I've gone through so much in my day as well, but why would I want to hear about all this? But then if you express that in a stonewalling way, or in a like, yeah, whatever, or like you didn't hear it very well, then it causes that friction. An emotionally intelligent husband listens. take it. It's fine. I know it's not sometimes you want what you want to hear, but it's for your own good. It's for your own good in terms of keeping that strong connection with your wife. Yes? And practice empathy. As we've said many, many times before, practice empathy. We talked about empathy. So another example is when your wife comes and says, well, you know, I was in so much traffic. You know, she was coming from her mum's house maybe, or her work, or whatever. I've gone through so much traffic, right? It's like, you know, 1 hour it took me. What's your response? Your response is, if you're a true active listener and you're listening very well and you're attentive and you become what? You become, give empathy, right? Empathic in your response. And if you are empathic in your response, if you're not, you say, well, how many times I've told you to use Waze? Or use Google Maps? Or use whatever in, you know, getting to where you... You know, this is it. You deserve it. I've told you 1,000,000 times. Go through towards that route. That's not an empathic response. That's someone who is just wants to create a fight, and it's the ego that is talking. That's not very highly emotionally intelligent. A better response is, I can't imagine what you went through. You must be so tired. Traffic is horrible. You must be so tired right now. That's it. Just that. It will calm everything down. Calm everything down. See, the problem is that, you know, every human being has egos, but we as men, our ego is a bit more stiff. You know what I mean? You know, we just like, you know, I told you this so many times. I mean, you're really annoying me. You know, but you can say that, but if you say that, then it causes friction. And if you want your marriage to be a godly marriage, yes, then try to be emotionally intelligent on these particular aspects. And of course, perhaps the sisters are thinking, well, you know, yes, it's all from what, but or maybe you guys are thinking, well, you should do a lecture on emotionally intelligent wife. Inshallah, in the future, we'll do an emotion. But as I said, I want to remind you that because, you know, the survey highlighted that there is a lot of emotional abuse, causing problems, and also the rajul is qawwamuna ala nisa. Yes, you are in charge of the household. So making sure that a husband is emotionally intelligent, in my opinion, will inshallah help to calm situations in the household. Yes? Number 4 is you build emotional intimacy. Yes? And this is vulnerability. This is a vulnerability in men and husbands. We don't like to talk about our feelings, especially when it comes to intimacy. When we are in need of intimacy, when we are in need of getting together with our wives, we can't express that. It's very difficult for me to express it. It's very difficult for me to say that in words. And so therefore, I'll get frustrated. Then I go to stonewalling once again, because of lack of what? Expression, lack of being emotionally intelligent. But an emotionally intelligent husband, he shares his thoughts and feelings openly with his wife. We've got to, you see, the point is, my brothers, my dear brothers, is that we've got to, as men, as husbands, we've got to start to break that barrier of, I don't want to speak to my wife about this and that, right? Especially in terms of our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts. If you want a successful marriage, start talking to her. Start to be open with her. Start to talk to her about your feelings. Be open about your feelings. Yes? As much as she is open to her, because it's not that difficult for her to talk to you about her feelings. It's how it is. But for us, it's much more difficult. Yes? And it creates a safe space for her to also do the same. If you, as the emotionally intelligent husband, opens up about intimacy. Yes? And it's very important, because this is one of the reasons why it's causing friction among the couple, is the lack of intimacy. Yes? And of course, we know that both require intimacy. But sometimes men, they say, well, they want perhaps in terms of frequency more often, right? But they don't express that to their wives. And the wife does not know, Sometimes they don't know. Yes, it's very important to open up and have a very frank, open conversation with your wife on this. Now, just before we end and summarize for the whole series, inshallah, I just wanted to touch on the role of the father, not just the husband, just as a small digression, the role of the father. Because sometimes, you know, the load is put into the wife in terms of upbringing, in terms of, we talked about upbringing yesterday, in terms of parenting. But unfortunately, I mean, of course, you find fathers who are very attentive, fathers who always make time for their children, and you have got a spectrum. You find others who don't. But it's important that we do try to give as much time as possible to our children. There is a really interesting saying by Kilroy Oldster, right? Really interesting saying. He says, sons aspire to either become their father or vie to be his exact opposite. Sometimes sons, if you've got a son, right, they aspire to become like their father, and if they don't really see their father very much, they don't have that communication, that emotional communication with their father, they probably aspire to become exactly the opposite of the father. And that is an interesting observation. Whether it's true or not, that's an interesting observation. So therefore, it's important for us to spend time with our children. It's important we give our time to our children. And you know all these things. We run an organization in London called Muslim Families Initiative. It's been going on for around 10 years. It's mainly for young couples with young children. Yes? And we do programs, frequent programs, wilada, shahada, etc., etc. What I have noticed in the last 10 years, and that's my observation in the last 10 years, is that the number of mothers who come and bring their children to the program is nearly double the number of fathers who also come to the program. And I ask sometimes the children, I say, where's your daddy? Oh, he's at home. Oh, he's working. Yeah? They usually give the children to the father and say, the mother, and they say, take him, take her. Yeah, take him to the program. You know, I'd rather have some rest. It's that lack of involvement, it's the lack of connection with your children. They need you. As the father, they need you. They require you, they need you. It's important that you speak to them in the best possible way. You go out with them, you have that emotional attachment with them, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that wraps up, my dear brothers and sisters, our series for the 10 nights of Muharram, where we have looked at the Hussaini mind. And it's important that I express this again before I go, that I could have done lots of social problems, you know, trying to diagnose lots of social problems, etc., which we have done today to some extent. Yesterday we touched on to some extent. But I chose that particular topic so that we develop ourselves to become individuals who are godly, who are people who are true Hussainis, so that inside us, internally and externally, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be proud of us. And we talked about in the first lecture, I'm just going to go through the summary of all the lectures, inshallah, in the next 10 minutes. For those of you who were not here as well, that the most important point that we highlighted is that you have a lot of thoughts. And you have around 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. As we mentioned, 95% of them are quite repetitive and 5 of them are new. And you are running on autopilot. We've got to stop this autopilot. If there is anything that you've taken out of this 10 nights, right, is this. Just stop the autopilot. Because the autopilot is taking you away from God. That's the bottom line. The autopilot is causing you conflicts at home. The autopilot is causing you friction between you and your kids. The autopilot is not allowing you to be engaged in the community. Autopilot is not good. As mu'mineen, as Hussainiyin, we should be conscious that we are on autopilot and stop that autopilot by trying to understand and comprehend our thoughts and try to change our thoughts, manage our thoughts. Yes? It's not talked about much. And we said at the start that the soul the soul has at least 3 compartments, 3 different faculties, at least. One of them is the intellect, the other is anger, and the other is desire, correct? And we talked about when they are deficient and when they are excessive. But we also talked about what's in moderation of these particular faculties. And we said that in order for us to try to make sure that these particular faculties are put into moderation, we've got to understand and comprehend our thoughts and mind, because there's a link between the mind and the soul. Yes? And I appreciate that it was a bit dry. I know, I understand that maybe not a lot of people understood it, so I invite you to go and read more about it. Don't just take my word for it. And we talked about how should we do this? What did we say? What's the word that we keep on talking about? Neuroplasticity, yes? We said that the science of neuroplasticity has now given us the opportunity to really understand our brain, and is telling us that you can change your brain to however you want. However you like, you can change your brain. You can mold your brain to the way that you want to mold it. Powerful, very powerful. And you know, you are living at the time when they have understood neuroplasticity and the brain. So maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Yawm al-Qiyamah will say, well, you know, I'm not going to blame those before you, but now the science is telling you that you do have an opportunity to change your brain, then why didn't you? And we've got to direct our mind towards God. How? Is when we change our thoughts, we make them godly thoughts. When I understand that what triggers my anger so that I can keep my family in the right direction. I understand and comprehend what actually the whispers of the shaitan that comes in my head. I know that these are the whispers of the shaitan. You understand and comprehend that particular issue. Then we talked about embracing the present moment, if you remember. Yes? Being in the now is the only thing you have. You can't go back to the past, and you can't go in the future. Back to the Future, the film, yeah? You can't. The only thing you have is the present moment. Make good use of the present moment. Sometimes in the present moment we can change our thoughts, and sometimes it's really good to be in the present moment with no thoughts. We didn't touch much on that, but also go and research about it. Meditation, reflection, contemplation. Remember the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to do meditation. When he used to go up in Ghar Hara. Yes? Why are we not doing it? It's a multi-billion pounds business out there. Mindfulness and meditation. Yes? Why are we not doing it? In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it obligatory for us to do meditation 5 times a day. But it's much deeper than the meditation that's out there. And salah is a form of meditation. Yes? Go back to the talk, inshallah, if you want more. We also talked about making, in order for us to be true mu'mineen, in order for us to try to change our thoughts, we've got to change our thoughts to being godly. Because sometimes we do hidden shirk. Remember we talked about hidden shirk? Right? وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. Many people who say we are mu'mineen, many people, they actually are mushrikeen. So I've got to change my thoughts to be godly thoughts. And not associate others with God. Not ask favors. Right? You can ask favors from human beings, but be conscious that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's helping you. Yes? Always speak Allah, hear Allah, see Allah, walk Allah, drink Allah, do everything for the sake of God. Everything. And that is why I said in Jum'ah prayers today that tomorrow, the day of Ashura, should be the day of God. Don't get distracted by other things. Tomorrow is the day of God. Tomorrow you've got to ask yourself this question: how am I going to get closer to God? Through Hussein. Salamullahi alayhi. What can I learn from Abu Abdullah al-Hussein for me to get closer to God? Otherwise, what is the point? What's the point of Thawratul Hussein? Tomorrow is the day of Allah. It's the day of God. Let us tell the others who say, look, you just lament and you just cry and then for someone who died long time ago. No, we say, no, that's not what we do. We lament. In every lamentation that I do, it is, I'm asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove those sins from my heart. Remember, like this, remove the sins. Remove another sin. This is being godly. That was the path of Hussein. Salamullahi alayhi. Then we talked about surrendering to Allah, doing tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Understand that this is trying to link the mind and the soul. Yes? By me consciously doing tawakkul, it helps me in my soul and having a positive mindset. Remember we gave examples of having always a positive mindset. Yes? Another talk we talked about is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do sharhul sadr. Open your chest. Yes, open your heart. Sharhul sadr, because Musa asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet, Alam nashrah laka sadrak. Opens our chest means opens our heart to spirituality, opens our vision, opens our thoughts. Yes? It's all very much interlinked in our series. And also we said at the end, let's practice Qawad. Do you remember Qawad? C-O-A-D? You remember C-O-A-D? Yes, what's the first one? Condition, observation, assessment, and discipline. Yes, Qawad. Practice Qawad in your daily life in order for you to discipline your soul. Yes, there's a link between your thoughts and your soul, and through Qawad you can do that. It's a practical suggestion. Go back to the talks if you were not here. Then we talked about practicing gratitude. Gratitude elevates you. And a shukr elevates you, isn't it? It's a higher level of taqwa. I proved it to you from the Quran. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. And we said the 3 S's. Do you remember SSS? Yes? Shukr lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the first time you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is do shukr lillah, because Allah has given you another opportunity to live in this world. Yes? And then after that you do sajdatay shukr. Yes? And then we called it sleep shukr, where the last one is what? It's just before you sleep, list the stuff that you are grateful for in your life. And the husbands, the first thing you should write is wife. Right? And we also talked about Prophet Musa salamullahi alayhi, and the heart of Musa. And what can we learn from Prophet Musa salamullahi alayhi? His self-development and control of his emotions through trials. Yes, it was an example of how he controlled his emotions and how he developed himself through those trials that he went through when he faced Fir'aun. Yes? And how he changed his thoughts and how he managed to speak eloquently in front of Fir'aun. This is an individual who's written in the Quran many times, purposely mentioned many times so that you and I can go back and read it. But I know that we've heard about Musa's story, but we haven't contemplated much on it. The Quran is here. It's gathering dust. Yes? We also yesterday talked about parenting with empathy. Yes, and we emphasized about what does empathy mean. We gave different scenarios. If I want to truly make sure that I build a Muslim family, one of the ways I need to do this is I need to practice empathy with my children. Yes? And empathy, again, it's about changing my mindset and trying to make sure that my thoughts are changed so that I can practice empathy. Because the result of emotions is what? The initiator of the emotions is thoughts. And today, we talked about the emotionally intelligent husband. So, my dear brothers and sisters, inshallah, I will leave you with this. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can, inshallah, use this opportunity where we've gathered together in the last 10 nights to grow, get closer to Allah. This is what we need to do. Maybe we won't even be here next Muharram. Can you guarantee that you are here next Muharram? You won't. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you, okay, so last Muharram was 2023 for you. How did you get closer to me through Muharram, through Hussain? Yes? This is the Hussaini mindset. Aba Abdullah al-Hussain salamullahi alayh in Karbala, he is the one who did Tawakul. He is the one who practiced gratitude. He is the one who took care of his family. He was an emotionally intelligent husband. He was someone who practiced empathy with his family and children. That is the emotionally intelligent man and the mind that we should aspire to have. Otherwise, what is the point? Again, I say this. Otherwise, what is the point we gather? Yes, we might have some spiritual boost, but we go back home, maybe a week later, we go back to how we were before. So I invite you, inshallah, my dear brothers and sisters, to embark on this journey of self-development and also practicing and implementing the lessons we have talked about in order for us all to have that Hussaini mind, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And back to Karbala, where Aba Abdullah al-Hussain salamullahi alayh, this individual who practiced so many lessons that he learned from his father and from his grandfather. This pious individual from a pious family. Maqtal of Muharram narrates that when Al-Abbas salamullahi alayhi was killed, Al-Hussain salamullahi alayhi turned to see none to help him against his foes. He looked and saw how his family members and companions lied slaughtered on the ground. He heard the wailing of the orphans and the cries of the children. As loud as he could, he called out, "Is there anyone who defends the sanctity of the Messenger of Allah? Is there anyone who believes in the unity of Allah and who fears Allah in our regard? Is there anyone who comes to our rescue and who wishes by doing so to please Allah?" It was a godly mission, my dear brothers and sisters. Oh Hussainiyun, it was a godly mission. Anyone who comes to us will please Allah, he says. The women's voices now grew even louder and they cried, "Who stood up?" Al-Sajjad stood up alayhi salam. He was leaning on a cane and dragging a sword. Imagine the scenario, my dear brothers and sisters. He was so sick and could hardly move. But Al-Hussain salamullahi alayh called on his daughter Kulthum, and he said, "Confine him so that the world may not run out of progeny of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi." So she took him back to his bed. Al-Muqarram continues to narrate and says, Imam al-Hussain ordered his son Abdullah, he was a radhi', he was a baby, to be brought to him so that he will say goodbye to him. He knew these are the last moments, O mu'mineen. He placed him in his lap and he continued to kiss him. Imam al-Hussain brought him near the army of bin Ziyad. The baby was thirsty, O mu'mineen. He just wanted water. That's all he wanted. He wanted water for the baby. Do they not have the heart to give a baby just some water and asked for water. Harmala la'natullahi alayh. He shot the infant with an arrow that slaughtered him. Al-Hussein received his blood in his hand and he said, Hawwana alayya ma nazala bi annahu bi'aynillah. Look at the iman of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. He did not complain. He said, why are you doing this? No, he didn't. He said, what decrees my affection is the fact that it is witnessed by Allah the Almighty. And then he said, oh Allah, it is not less in your esteem that the life of a son, Lord, if you have kept victory away from us, then let it be so for something even better, and seek revenge on our behalf from the oppressors, and let what has happened to us in this life to be a treasure for us in the hereafter. Oh Allah, you are the witness against people who killed the one who looked most like your messenger Muhammad. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and his progeny. After Abdullah al-Radi' was killed, Al-Hussein salamullahi alayh, he advanced towards the enemy. He raised his sword, losing all hope of survival, challenging them to a duel. He killed all those who accepted his challenge, and their number was quite high. Then he charged on the army's east flank, and he recited Al-Maut Awla min Rukub al-Ari والعار أولى من دخول النار. That is better than accepting this disgrace, while disgrace is better than the fire. And on the left flank he recited أنا الحسين بن علي آليت أن لا أنثني. I am Hussein, son of Ali. I decided never to bow, no bend. أحمي عيالات أبي أمضي على دين النبي. Protecting my father's family, remaining on the Prophet's creed. Abdullah ibn Ammar said, never have I seen someone surrounded by a huge number of enemies and whose son is slaughtered, and so his family and companions, and who still maintained his composure, remained relentless, and stayed courageous more than Hussein. Men kept fleeting in front of him whenever he charged at them, and none kept his ground. Amr ibn Sa'ad shouted to everyone, this is the son of this individual, the one with the stomach. This is the son of the killer of the Arabs. Attack him from all directions. Many arrows were at once shot at him, and he was forced to alight from his horse. Al-Hussein shouted at him, O followers of Abu Sufyan, if you have no religion at all, and yet you fear the returning to your Maker, then at least you should remain free in your life, and you should go back to your lineage if you are Arabs as you claim. Al-Shimr addressed him saying, what are you, son of Fatima? He said, I am the one who is fighting you, and women are not held accountable, so keep your rogues away from them and stop them from harming the woman as long as I am alive. Hussein, my dear brothers and sisters, he wanted to protect his family, his AhlulBayt. But I ask you, who was to protect him when Shimr sat on his chest? ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ماتم يا حسين.